Hi everyone, I'm Nick with Proper Insurance. Our good friend Bill Faith from STR Wealth recently released a podcast with another acquaintance and a client of ours, Brianna, who unfortunately had one of the worst case scenarios. Let's watch this video together, and I'm going to do some reactions with it as well, kind of give some additional insight to how insurance works in this situation.
I got a call from ADT that there was smoke alarms going off, and I actually called them off. My cleaners were there, and I'm like, there's no fire. I was wrong. The house is burning down, and my plane is boarding. They didn't know what was going to happen next with insurance in the house and all of the things. It was very, very overwhelming.
I want to take a step back. We started talking about insurance, and you made a big change just like 2 to 3 weeks prior to that fire with your insurance.
So I had previously been with Proper Insurance. They're the gold standard in our industry. And I already had a base homeowner's policy. Then I had a flood policy. So Proper was my third policy. It ended in May, and I just decided to not renew. The issue with that is our fire happened in February of 24. And I just lost a home that was doing 173,000 gross.
I remember this day as well when I got to meet Brianna at STR Wealth. That's put on by Bill Faith. Extremely unfortunate event. It's the worst part of what we do because these types of things happen at the most inopportune time. It's never convenient to have a claim. And in Brianna's situation, it's really tough when you're away from home and your kids and find out that unfortunately your house burnt down.
I didn't have any loss of income. And so not only are you losing the money, which is one thing, people don't realize the carry costs in something like this. And so now we've been paying an almost $4,000 mortgage for the last 8 months. So it killed me financially.
This is a big thing that Brianna touches on here that a lot of folks don't understand, and it's the carry cost of the property if it gets shut down, not just from a claim, but any reason. The difference in policy language around how your revenue is protected in an event like this, a fire. It's not that the insurance provider that Brianna went with after non-renewing our policy, that was the problem. It's how they address that lost business revenue and how it's paid out that it can be problematic.
It was really hard to make it through that. And I wish I hadn't not renewed that policy. Wish we'd kept it. I then immediately put Proper on every property that I own, because we just can't afford to take that risk.
Part of risk management is having an insurance partner that fundamentally understands what you're doing. We sat down together and went through everything on all of our other properties to ensure she's going to be taken care of on a covered loss like this, especially from the revenue standpoint.
Loss of use is so different than loss of income. That's why I tell people, don't just blindly trust your agent. Really go through your deck page, your policy, understand what you're covered for, that your rebuild costs are high enough. A lot of people don't realize the mitigation work and the demolition is all part of that number. Content coverage is also for a team to come in and document everything. You need to know what's in those homes too and have a full inventory, because you're not prepared when something like that happens. And then the other thing too that people need to look for is off premise, especially if you have something where you're taking a guest off of your premise, of your property, you've got to make sure that you have the correct coverages and you're ready for...
An example of that, what are you referring to as like off-premise?
So for example, we have a little A-frame that's on a small lake, and we provide them with a pedal boat and some kayaks. So when they leave our house, your normal homeowner's insurance policy will have exclusions against that. And so if someone dove off, even if they were intoxicated and broke their neck, I'm liable as a homeowner. You have to have the proper signage, you need to have the proper insurance for that liability aspect, especially off-premise. That's a big exclusion, most base policies.
Brianna hits the nail on the head again. Brianna's obviously, after the event, is well educated on insurance and is quite a champion for folks that are listening to make sure you have the right coverage. The off-premises liability is a big one. If you have amenities that the guests take off premises, such as you're next to a small lake and you have canoes and kayaks and a dock, insurance is typically written to just protect you on your property line. So making sure that you have the right liability protections that extend off the property and cover these amenities that you're providing is so important in protecting your business and being able to leverage insurance in that type of situation.
You went through the Florida hurricanes, Milton and Helen, and I went through both of them, and Helen was the one that devastated us in North Carolina. And I kind of wish my dwelling had damage. I had no damage to either dwelling, but I've got like $15,000-$20,000 worth of cleanup and trees and fire pit and stuff like that. And I mean, I've lost over $100,000 in rental income. If my house would have been out of commission, or both of them, then I would have got loss of rental. And my biggest house is with Proper. But unfortunately, because I didn't have any damage, nothing's covered. It kind of sucks. I didn't know that going in.
Bill makes a great point here. Insurance only responds when you have a covered cause of loss. In a lot of these situations, especially when we're talking about Helene and Milton and these big storms, a lot of the damage was due to tidal surge or flooding. Right? Those are flood insurance policies that cover that, not a homeowner's liability policy. And because there's no physical damage caused by a covered cause of loss, the policy doesn't respond. This is not something unique to us. It's everywhere. If you owned a coffee shop and the area is shut down due to storms and you don't have any physical property damage to your property, you don't get loss of revenue. So that goes back to how important what Bill teaches as well on making sure you have enough in the bank to carry your costs up to 12 months for what's called loss of market. The market has been lost. You didn't have physical property damage. There's not a covered cause of loss. No insurance is going to respond to that.
It's also the people who didn't have flood policies. Like people don't realize that flood is an entirely different thing. And so if your home floods, that's not covered unless you have flood insurance. And even flood insurance is regulated by FEMA and the government. There's a lot of regulation issues and red tape and what's covered and what's not.
And it's so cheap to get. Everybody should have flood insurance.
Absolutely.
Another great point made by Brianna. Only about 2% of the U.S. property owners carry flood insurance. It is a government-backed program through FEMA. Flooding can happen anywhere. It can happen whether you're in the mountains or you're right on the coast. So it's really important to investigate getting that to ensure that you have protections for that flood damage that happens at your property.
I love Proper and I use Proper, but Proper won't insure any of my properties in Montana. And they're based in Montana. I wish that they would. And I'm with State Farm, and with State Farm, there is no loss of rental income. What they will do is they will replace your tenants into a hotel and pay for the hotel, but I will get no rental income.
We are based in Montana, and I wish very much that we could insure Bill's properties for property protection and income. Unfortunately, out here in Montana, in the West, as with a lot of states, California is going through it real hard right now. We're seeing it in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, you name it. Some of these more mountain properties we're not able to insure from a fire risk standpoint. However, we do have some available solutions, if desired, around making sure the liability is protected. We may not be able to cover, again, property damage, but one of the biggest threats as a short-term rental operator is legal liabilities for slip and fall, alcohol, pet bites, things like that. And those are things that we can still accomplish for you if we're unable to insure because of the potential fire risk at your home.
Thanks for joining me and watching that. This is a true real-life example. This is stuff that we work with and deal with and experience with our clients on a daily basis. And as heartbreaking as it is, it's always a good learning experience for everyone to see that these things do actually happen and that there is limitations and gaps in other insurance products, which is why proper insurance exists.